The second kind of major issue that we heard about in Barranquilla was with respect to the prison conditions. So the original plan of the delegation was to have all 56 people allowed entrance into a prison in their respective regional groups. And we were split into two different groups. One was going to go to a maximum security prison, and then there was my group. All of the permits for all 56 delegates were denied, with the exception of 3 of us who were able to go to one of the prisons in Barranquilla. So I was one of the 3 who was able to go into the prison, which was, it was an incredible experience for me. But I mean, that just goes to show you how much they're not really that interested in having international lawyers come and look at what's going on in the prisons. We had a chance to speak with 3 political prisoners, so members of the ELN, which is one of the 2 main guerrilla groups in Colombia, and essentially they spoke of a lot of the issues that Kara mentioned with respect to prison conditions, and issues generally occurring throughout the country. So lack of access to lawyers, lack of access to doctors. We actually, one of the men that we interviewed had a horrible a scar, kind of an open wound on his arm that had happened from, he was arrested in the course of a battle, I guess, in 2 years previously, and this had not received medical attention, and there were still bullets in his arm. It was horrible to look at. I can't even imagine what it would have been like to live with that every day, but they denied him access to doctors. He couldn't see his lawyer. The prisons were overcrowded by at least twofold. Horrible sanitation conditions, so there was kind of a trough or an open pipe where raw sewage would run in the middle of the prison, and the roof had openings in it to, in theory, allow for sunlight, but every time it rained into this open trough of raw sewage and spilled it everywhere. So you can imagine the sanitation issues that raises. And probably the most outrageous issue in terms of prison conditions that we encountered was actually by accident. We were leaving this small interview room where we were speaking with these 3 members of the ELN, and on the way out we happened to see a man in a very, very small dark room, and there was an opening about this big that we could see him, and he was kind of sitting on a chair reading a newspaper in the light that was shining into his cell. And when we spoke with him, we learned that his sentence had elapsed 4 months ago, and he was waiting in that room, which was actually in a worse condition than his original cell. He was waiting in that room for someone to open the door, and no one would get his file out of the office and check to see that he had served his sentence unless he paid them, and he didn't have the money to pay them. So that was, like I said, one of the more outrageous instances of terrible prison conditions and just a general access to justice issue. In Cartagena, we met again with lawyers' collectives, and we heard similar stories about threats to lawyers and how it was very unsafe for them to practice law. Protective measures that they were being given were not satisfactory. And we heard about particular cases that had stalled, in particular one relating to a man named Sisto Aprile, who had been gunned down in his kitchen, and his wife, who was sitting beside him as he was gunned down and was the key witness in the story, had not been interviewed. There had been no investigation, and a year and a half onwards, she couldn't get an answer from the authorities as to what was going on with her case, notwithstanding the fact that she had Lawyers Without Borders assisting her in trying to navigate what exactly was going on. And her husband, Sisto Aprile, the man who was gunned down, was actually a defense lawyer. So she believes that he was gunned down for the fact that he was defending causes that were not particularly popular among some groups. And that's just one example of many. One positive thing that did happen while we were in Cartagena is we had a meeting, positive and bizarre, was that we had a meeting that brought together the lawyers groups that we met and the victims groups. So we actually had the lawyers that we met with telling us about how difficult it was for them to practice law and how unsafe it was for them to practice law, and the wife of Sisto Aprile in the same room as the prosecutors, the police, the military, the ombudsman, and all of the people sort of representing the system that was causing the problem in the first place. So it was, as you might imagine, a very bizarre meeting to be in, and the lawyers that we had met with actually requested and organized this meeting and asked us to facilitate a Q&A session where they could ask the difficult questions and gain an audience with the people that they wouldn't otherwise have had the opportunity to speak with. So it was a very interesting meeting, and we did get a commitment from the prosecutor, the police, and the military to create a commission that would monitor on a monthly basis with the lawyers, the criminal defense lawyers in kind of the local criminal defense lawyers association, the status of cases like Sisto Aprile, to make sure that they didn't get, well, in theory, to make sure that they didn't get caught up in the system. So that's one very positive concession that we did get from the meeting, and we're hoping that that will come to fruition. So basically, we're at the stage now of working on a final report similar to the one that Kara and her team has put together. I'm actually going to be part of the report writing committee, so I'm looking forward to seeing the regional reports from the other regions. What I just gave you was a taste of what happened in the Caribbean region, but there's 7 or 8 more regions that we're going to be hearing very detailed reports from, and we'll be compiling this all with kind of overall observations and recommendations, and hopefully we'll be able to have another session like today where we can go into that in more detail. And if anyone is interested in having a copy or the link, I can send you the link if you want to leave me with your email, and I'll make sure you get it when we do post it. Thank you.